So today I want to talk about another hack for confidence. This one I referred to in my video from the previous day, and it's called the one thing. So the one thing is a type of self-questioning that you ask on a regular basis. Essentially what you do is you ask yourself, what's the one thing that I can do? That by doing it, all other things will become easier or unnecessary. You can apply this type of thinking to any area that you are working with. And it's actually critical for you to start at the right place. If you want to make the most impact, if you want to be the most productive possible, starting in the right place has a lot of power. I want you to imagine that you needed to knock down, let's say, 2,000 dominoes. If all of the dominoes were, let's say, lined up in a row, it would be pretty useful for you to identify which domino to knock over first so that you could have the most impact. And actually what would happen here is that if you did locate the most important domino, the first domino, the one thing, then you would only have to put effort in a single time. I hope that can illustrate the power of finding the one thing. Okay, and I didn't come up with this concept on my own, far from it. I read it in a book called The One Thing. Gary Keller wrote an amazing book that really truly illustrates the importance of thinking before acting and focusing energy on what's most important. Some tasks truly do make other tasks easier and unnecessary, and therefore it's most of the time a good idea to tackle those ones first. An example I sometimes give is that if you, for say, had a lot of phobias, a lot of fears, you could take some time to confront each and every one of those phobias. And you may spend a week or two confronting each of them and developing a sense of courage and bravery towards isolated different events that you had phobias towards. But thinking from the perspective of the one thing, if you identified one thing that you could do that would make it easier or unnecessary for you to confront all those phobias, maybe you would decide that developing faith would be the one thing for you. By developing faith, or let's say courage, you generalized faith or generalized courage, you no longer have to worry about the specific phobias. Because with a certain amount of faith and courage, confronting those would be easier and oftentimes unnecessary. And you could apply that faith to make much more progress than confronting each fear in an isolated progression. So essentially there's always a more important task. There's always something that's much more important to tackle first than other things. And if you don't take the time to find it and tackle that task, then you're leaving gains on the table, right? You're not going to grow the muscles that you could be. Okay. Another reason why it's helpful is because it activates the reticular activating system, the RAS. It's a part of your brain that identifies what you're looking for. If you make it a habit to look for the most important thing, the one thing that you could work on, you're going to identify it more often. It's going to pop out to you. And this can be applied to confidence. Okay? So what's the one thing that you could do that such by doing it, all other things with regard to building confidence would become easier or unnecessary? Ask yourself that question. And if you can't answer that question, then your one thing would be to work to answer that question and find the answer for you. What's the one thing that you could do to build your confidence that would be more important than anything else? Thank you for listening.